සේකණ්ඩ ශෛලපුර විරාජමාන වූ මුතුන් මල්කට බඳු දළදා සමිඳු ඇඳ අවසර ගන්නේ උතුම් පෙරහැර කරුණ වහන්සේ ගජ තේජසින් යුතුව වැඩම වීමට පින් ලැබෙති වන්දාමි සාදු මමලං ජිනදන්ත ධාතුන්.
ඔබ සැමට උතුම් දළදා සමසරණය. ඓතිහාසික කඳුඩරට ඇසල පෙරහැර මහා මංගල්‍යයේ සිව්වන කුඹල් පෙරහැර වීදි සංචාරය කිරීම සඳහා සියලු කටයුතු සූදානම් කර තිබෙනවා. එදා කිත්සිරි මෙවන් මහරජ දවස හේමමාලාවන් සහ දන්ත කුඹුරන් විසින් වැඩම කර වූ උතුම් දළදා හාමුදුරුවන් විශේෂයි පෙරහැර මංගල්‍යයන් පවත්වා ජනෝපහාර අප දක්වා තිබෙනවා. වර්තමානයේ අපට උරුම වූ මේ මාහගේ සංස්කෘතිය අද දවසේ ඔබට අපි සජීවීව සම්මත කරන්නේ රූපවාහිනී මාධ්‍ය ඔස්සේ සහ අන්තර්ජාලය ඔස්සේ. වෙනදා සෙන්කරගල් නුවරට පැමිණ මේ වීදියක හිඳ පෙරහැර මංගල්‍ය අසිරිය අද දවසේ ඔබට අත්විඳින්න හැකියාව නොලැබෙන්නේ රටේ පවතින අයහපත් සෞඛ්‍ය තත්ත්වය නිසාවෙන්. එසේ නමුත් රූපවාහිනී මාධ්‍ය ඔස්සේ අප ඔබට මේ කුඹල් පෙරහැරේ අසිරිය ඔබට සමීප කරනවා. අපි ආරාධනා කරන ඔබට සජීවීව එක්වන්න ඓතිහාසික කඳුඩරට ඇසල පෙරහැර මහා මංගල්‍යයේ සිව්වන කුඹල් පෙරහැර සමගින්.
Dalada Samidu Pihitai. You are now joining us with a special live broadcast of the 4th Kumbal Perahera, brought to you by the Media Bureau of sridaladamaligawa.
And now we have seen Perahera officials obtaining the permission and blessings of the Devale Nilame before commencing their street perambulations.
And now, after giving blessings to the Perahera officials, we can now see the sacred tooth relic being taken to be placed on the royal tusker, and making his way from the upper to the lower chamber, the Devale Nilame ceremoniously and reverentially takes the relic casket under the protection of the chief incumbent of the Maha Vihara, Venerable Tibbatuave Sri Siddhartha Medankara Nayaka Thero, to the royal tusker.
And now, the relic casket is placed within the Ranhilige, mounted on the adorned tusker, who will light up the 4th Kumbal Perahera today.
Indeed, and now we can see the sacred relics being carefully mounted on this royal tusker, securing its place so that the royal tusker can gracefully carry on his duties. And we can also see the Maha Sangha and Perahera officials venerating this sacred tooth relic of Lord Buddha. They are seeing pictures of the Dalada beautifully illuminated with thousands of light, and with the moonlight reflecting on the still waters protecting the Dalada.
And this is one of the most eye-catching scenes in the entire procession. And now we see the devout moment when the great tusker steps majestically down from the Mahavahal to the Sangagala in preparation to walk the streets of the city. And this is the renowned Indiraja tusker.
This is a live broadcast brought to you by the Media Bureau of sridaladamaligawa, and you are now seeing pictures of the sacred and historical Senkadagalapura.
Marking the beginning of the 4th Kumbal Perahera, Now we see the whip wielders.
Indeed. And the duty of the whip wielders or the whip masters is to clear the way for the holy Perahera casket. And although today the streets are quite empty due to the current situations, traditions will always be carried on by these whip wielders.
Although whip conjures are fear in most minds, the sight of the Perahera whip masters has the opposite effect, calming the populace, since they are the ones who clear the way for the holy Perahera casket to be carried in the streets of the city. And also, it is to be noted that these whip wielders reflect the thunder, or the sound of the thunder, which precedes the rain.
Indeed, Sachini. So, the Perahera, one of the main intentions of the Perahera was to call the rain gods, to welcome the rain gods, to shower this country with rains, so that our crops and cultivations will be watered by the rain gods. And therefore we see how closely bounded this Perahera is with nature and our ancient heritage.
In the time of the kings, the whip was an instrument of punishment. But here in this Perahera, this is not a duty of that nature. Here, the instrument is used to remove fear, create a sense of love and compassion among the people, and bring merit to them.
Indeed, and speaking of people, on the previous years, we would have seen great numbers throw coins into the paths of the whip masters as an offering to ward off evil from their children and soothe their life paths. But as you can see today, according to the regulations imposed by the country due to the current situation, we do not see such people venerating and throwing coins to the whip wielders. However, that does not stop the whip wielders from performing their duties, for they have great respect and devotion towards their task, towards the task that is bestowed on them.
Of course, in single file, these whip wielders wield their whips to notify us all about the impending approach of the fourth Kumbal Procession.
And as you can see, they sway their whole torso, and this in fact reflects how difficult of a task it is to weave this meters long whip to make that sound which represents thunder. I believe it's a great responsibility for them to take the lead of this Esala Maha Perahera, a Perahera which is being viewed and venerated by a whole nation, not in Sri Lanka but internationally as well.
And also, this Dalada procession is a platform for these artists to showcase their talents. And this whip wielding itself is a form of art, because these wielders have to know the art of wielding the whip without hurting their colleagues.
Indeed, and when you whip these whips, the ends come undone. And as you just saw pictures of these whip wielders repairing the ends of the whips.
Just as lightning flashes across the skies, the Perahera too has its flashes of light whipping across the faces of the people. And this is the offering of fire to the gods to water the earth with rain.
Indeed, Sachini, rain does not come with the sound of thunder alone. And also, there is another meaning behind these fire dancers. And it is to notify the distant people who are living far away, the people who cannot hear the sound of the whips. This is to notify them that the Perahera, the sacred tooth relic, is impending.
As you can see, this group of fireball dancers, which is led by E.D. Tilakaratna, comprises very young fireball dancers as well.
The sight of lightning, as mentioned before, is a precursor to the descendant of rain gods, and this is a phenomenon of nature. These binding lightning flashes are a cooling heat in the Kandyesalaperahera procession. This is the heritage of the traditions of our torch dancers.
True, Rajiv, as we see in the Dalada procession, all these traditions and all these segments we see or we witness are very much connected to nature. As we mentioned earlier too, these lightning flashes remind us or reflect the natural phenomena of lightning.
And also, speaking of fire, fire has been closely bounded to the lives of our Sri Lankan personalities, of our Sri Lankan households. Speaking of which, it plays a big part in cooking, protecting crops and hyenas, and dispelling darkness.
The dancers tame fire and give it as Dalada offering, mindful of its part in cooking, as Rajiv mentioned, cooking, protecting crops and hyenas and everything. And also, they create curiosity, satisfaction and amazement.
You can see small children take part in this fiery dance. And this is not an easy task to perform. It is a task which involves a lot of danger. However, the skill and the devotion that these young kids and these old personals have for the sacred tooth relic is being showcased today in this 4th Kumbal Procession.
The sun, moon, earth, universe, solar month, night and day are all cyclic, and the fire dancers highlight these universal cycles and how they burn and cool us in our life cycles.
dancers are seen creating their patterns of fire across the night sky as they move on in the procession. For the children, it's a fire play, and for the experienced elders, it is a devout and committed fire dance.
The sight of the Buddhist flag, led by the part of the people waving the Kandyesala procession, reminding them that this is a celebration, devotion and offering to the Buddha. The flag bearers can be seen coming into the sight in the 4th Kumbal Procession today.
As you can see, the national flag taking the lead of the Buddhist flag bearers symbolizes that this is indeed a national festival, an event which is venerated by the whole nation, and an event which blesses everyone in this country irrespective of their religion. As you can see, the 6 colors in front of our eyes, displayed in ceremonious form. This reminds us of the great simplicity and scope of Buddha's Dharma. And as mentioned before, the ceremonious procession is performed in adulation of the living Buddha as well as the paramita for the future Buddha.
It is to be remembered and noted that these flag bearers are the inmates of the Palikale open prison. The sight itself, the sight of the Buddhist flags itself, calms undisciplined, wayward minds and focuses them on a procession of love and compassion radiating across the universe.
Speaking of the design of the Buddhist flag, it was jointly designed by Mr. J.R. De Silva and Colonel Henry L. S. Olcott to mark the revival of Buddhism in Ceylon. And it was accepted as the international Buddhist flag in 1952 at the World Buddhist Congress.
Following the Buddhist flag bearers, we now have the sword bearers. In fact, they are the representatives of the reticle martial arts crew.
There were many wars in the history of Sri Lanka where the procession of the sacred tooth relic was fought for, and now following the sword bearers is the Perahera.
And today, as usual, it is Banda, the elephant belonging to the Honorable Devale, Pradeep Nilangadana, who is leading the procession with all his majesty.
Clad in white robes, the Perahera comes into view, ceremoniously carrying the secretarial scroll.
And now, the very unique tune you hear is the tune of the Hay Beaters. No Panchatura Vadana or making of sound using either drums or musical instrument is permitted until the official troupe responsible of the Devale in the Dalada Maligawa takes the streets of the Kandian kingdom.
Drum phenomena. The four great drum clans of Daladamaligawa, namely Uduvela, Maligawa, Ihalawala and Maligawa, contribute with great devotion and pageantry to the celebration.
Marching second in today's fourth Kumbal Procession, we have Perahera, belonging to Venerable Alutnuwara Anuruddha Thero of the Perahera Mahavihara, who is taking part in the Esala procession for the 10th consecutive year.
And on the top of Perahera is none other than the Gajanayaka Nilame, who is the royal official in charge of the Troupe of Elephants in Sridaladamaligawa. And the present Gajanayaka Nilame we see now is Mr. Palita Jayawardena. Up next we have the water carrier dance or the Kottala Pada dance.
The water carrier dancers or the Kottalapada dancers depicts purity. As you can see, the dance is simple and is an example of the simplicity of the Buddhists and Lord Buddha's Dharma.
This dance symbolically washes the streets clean for the arrival of the Perahera casket.
Indeed, and the motions of the dance, their hand movements, symbolizes the spraying of spirit water on the earth of nation. Seeing this, our hearts are lifted by the knowledge and vision of our fertile and beautiful land.
This is Janaraja, who was gifted to the sridaladamaligawa in the year 1988 by the former President J.R. Jayawardena, and this icon which was introduced during the times of Venerable Valimita Sangaraja Thero, which symbolizes that this is truly a Buddhist festival.
And now we see the coconut flower dancers.
Pulmal or coconut flower denotes prosperity on the traditional kapruka or the tree of bounty. And these coconut flower dances symbolically represents the same bounty and abundance in their dance.
This young tusker, the latest addition to the troupe of elephants of the sridaladamaligawa, Pulatisi Raja, who commenced his walk, the kandyesalaperahera, the inaugural time yesterday, the third Kumbal Procession. Pulatisi Raja was gifted the sridaladamaligawa in the year 2017 from Burma, from the Burmese Prime Minister Aung San Suu Kyi.
And now we are seeing pictures of the Pantheru dancers. The Pantheru dancers, or this dancing style, symbolizes many aspects, of which I will speak in a moment. Times, it was believed that this Pantheru dance was danced to celebrate the victories in the battlefields.
Marching as the fifth elephant this evening, we have one of the most majestic and tallest elephants taking part in the fourth Kumbal Perahera. This is Gajaba, belonging to Mr. Ranjit Vijay Singha of the Morainwatta Devale in Yakkala.
On the mount of this Gajaba elephant, we see a canopy symbolizing the protection provided to the Perahera caste throughout the procession.
And as this elephant marches through the streets of the Kandian kingdom, we hear a sound which is very much synonymous with the Dalada Perahera. Anyone hears this tune or this beat of a drum, he would be reminded of the Dalada procession. Thammatama penetrates their profession with its distinctive sound, which gives the Dalada heritage the foundation of its pride and its honor.
And it is also to be remembered that clans from Heva Visa, Yakavela, Arawawada, Udunuwara, Dalada and Ridegama are traditionally assigned to this task of creating this drumming phenomena at the Dalada procession.
This majestic elephant representing the kingdom of Uwa, taking part for the first time in this year's Esala festival, is Salia, belonging to the chief incumbent of the Mahiyangana Rajamahawihara, Venerable Urulavatte Dhammarakita Theru.
And mounted on the top of this elephant, we see a cobra-shaped canopy which represents the security and the protection given to the sacred Dalada tooth relic.
And up next we have a troupe of Nayandhi Dancers.
This is a traditional dance performed by experienced artists dressed in Nayandhi dancing ornaments, but without the head covering of the dancing ornaments.
In fact, this was a dance held in the Devales. In this dance, Gataberea was played and verses used for upcountry or Udarata dancing are sung.
See, these Nayandhi dancers sway their hands to the beat of the Gataberea while singing songs or verses, glorifying the great virtues of Lord Buddha.
Marching next is a very special tusker of the stable of the sridaladamaligawa, Singharaja, who was gifted in the year 1995 to the sridaladamaligawa by the Singha regiment of the Sri Lanka army.
And on this tusker as well, we see a canopy being mounted and carried by this Perahera official.
Singharaja is quite a special tusker this year since he will also be joining in carrying the sacred relics throughout the next few days.
And now we are seeing a very different type of dance. Apart from the classical dance forms, this is a folk dance. Speaking of the origin of these dances, they are closely bounded and associated with the folk activities and the festivities of ancient Sri Lanka. And therefore, these dancers, and the instruments used by these dancers reflect the various activities of ancient Sri Lankan personals.
Of course, they are very much connected to the agrarian lifestyle we Sri Lankans had and still have.
As you can see, these young dancers very skillfully coordinates and combines these different dance routines with different instruments like likeli, raban and castanets to create a beautiful dance in whole.
And this troupe has been trained by PCB Vijay Surya.
Both these majestic elephants dressed in white robes, signifying a garden of roses, a costume designed by Mrs. Vasana Perahera of Valivaria, which was used for the first Kumbal Procession. And these two elephants in front of us, we have Raja belonging to Mrs. Sita Sena Nayak Mallava of Hettimulla, along with Punchibanda belonging to Mr. Kitsiri Mewan Velagedara of Panaliya. Both these elephants have been consistent participants of the kandyesalaperahera for the past 11 years. The garments of these elephants always create a signal or a meaning to what it is. And this costume in front of us will signify that these majesties are walking among a garden of roses.
And now we are about to see the most unique and most recognized of the Kandian dance heritage.
And that is the fully adorned Vesnatwa or the Kandian dancing troupe. Speaking of the origin and the birth of the West dance, it dates back to the time of King Pandukavaya. In ancient times, these West dancers danced for the king of Panduvasnuwara to dispel unseen, hostile forces that threatened his life. Therefore, in this procession, in order to pay their respect and protection to the Perahera casket, the king and the Nilame, they line the path in which they dance in two files of dancers, as you can see. These origin stories reflects the amount of symbolism and meaning on which these dancers have been brought from generation to generation.
Now we are about to see the most awaited moment of the Dalada procession. This is the Kare Korale, the second in command of the Dalada Nilame and the foremost observer of the Dalada procession. And now we see the Indiraja Tusker, who carries the sacred relic casket today in the fourth Kumbal Procession.
Indiraja today is accompanied by the colleagues Mian Raja and Buruma Raja, who was gifted to sridaladamaligawa in the year 2007 from Burma. Indiraja is the leader of the sridaladamaligawa elephant stables, and today with all his majesty, he does most of his job.
Indeed, and we can now see pictures of the sacred tooth relic showering their blessings to the whole of Sri Lanka.
And this is the chamber of versifiers at Sridaladamaligawa, singing verses in praise of the Lord Buddha and the sacred tooth relic.
Indeed, and you can see the calm and composed manner on which they sing their songs, reflecting the simplicity, calm and composed nature of Lord Buddha.
This is the second troupe of West dancers whom we see in the Dalada procession.
It should be specially mentioned that these West dancers symbolize the highest epitome that a dancer could achieve in their dancing career, and their very unique headgear known as the Vestatua is a reflection, is symbolizes this fact. In the ancient times, this tiara-like headgear used to take the form of a naga or a snake, but now we see the form of leaves, flames, or could also be considered to be rays of sunlight spreading across their heads. You see the amount of pride and respect and devotion that these West dancers take in taking part in this Dalada procession, and they are here to welcome the Honorable Devale Nilame. Speaking of the technique of these West dancers, it's partly derived from South India. It focuses on dynamism and powerful footwork, which involves leaps and whirls.
The second troupe of West dancers are usually bound to pave the way for the Devale Nilame of Sridaladamaligawa, And today, representing the Devada Nilame, we now see the Basnaik Nilame of Kataragana Devale, Mr. Gamunu Bandara Valisundara, marching in the procession.
As you can see, now we are seeing pictures of the Natha Devala premises.
The first of the four Devala Peraheras in the Dalada procession is that of the Natha Devale. It is accepted that God Natha is the coming Buddha.
Indeed, speaking of the close relation God Natha has for Buddhism, we can now see the chieftain of the Devalaya bringing the sacred and godly ornaments of God Natha to be placed on the elephant who would take the streets of the Kandian kingdom.
Marking the commencement of the Natha Devale procession, we see once again the Buddhist flag bearers.
Indeed, and this again reflects the close connection God Natha has for Buddhism.
As per the tradition, the official on the first elephant in the Natha Devala procession will be carrying the flag of Senkadagala, and this elephant is Rohana, belonging to Mr. Varuna Kannangara, the Kannangara family who was once prominent for having elephants, and Rohana is the last of this legend.
And now we are seeing pictures of the first heavy troupe of the Natha Devala Perahera. The troupe of the Natha Devala echoes the beautiful rhymes produced by the Hades instruments, indicating their offering to God Natha. When you look back at history, the ancestors of these performers were also part of this procession. Therefore, generation after generation, these players have trained and put in a lot of hard work to evolve into these talented players.
Adorned in bright yellow, here we have Kandula belonging to Mr. S.M. Roshan Patirana of Maharagama, with the official carrying the Buddhist flag.
God Natha is assumed to be yellow in complexion, so throughout the Perahera, we can see all these beautiful elephants and dancers clad in yellow robes.
Indeed, and now we see the Nayandhi dancing troupe of the Natha Devala Perahera. And similar to the West dancing troupe, two teams are involved in this dance. It was hereditary to the upcountry and should be learnt before the Vesnatuma, and this was used as a debut for the Vesnatuma. It is not easy to dance while moving. And now we see yet another elephant dressed in yellow robes. In fact, two elephants dressed in yellow robes.
And these two elephants, on the left we have Arjuna belonging to the historic Vaurukandala Rajamahawihara in Dikwella to Venerable Dikwelle Thissathero, alongside with Taraka belonging to the Honorable Basnayaka Nilame of the Sri Mahanatha Devale in Kandy, Gayan Hinkenda. Something quite interesting here is that the Kandyesalaperahera being a festival with elephants taking part from all around the country, Arjuna and Taraka were the first duo of elephants to arrive in Kandy this year.
Up next, we are about to see another traditional Kandian dance segment in the Natha Devale procession. In fact, this is the very first time we see this segment in today's Perahera.
Indeed, usually this segment or the Savaran dancers take part in the Maligawa Perahera as well. However, as Sachini mentioned, this is the first time that we are seeing this dancing troupe. It is said that in the days of yore, it was the tale of the Samara deer or the Samara deer that lived in India that was used for this purpose of creating these Chamara fans. And the air blown through the fine strands of its tail hair was said to be the most refreshing in the world.
The gentle breeze generated by these Sauron fans is the softest, and it denotes in the minds of the people the rise and fall of thoughts in our minds.
Breeding among domestic elephants is not a very occasional instance due to certain difficulties, but this is a result of such one successful attempt. The mother and son, all the way from Kottava, Kumari and Bandara, belonging to Mr. Kamal Kitsiri.
And now we see yet another Nayandhi troupe taking the streets of the Kandian kingdom. So as you can see, these Nayandhi dancers do not use any instruments for that to help or to facilitate their dancing moves. And they wear a partially completed costume in comparison to the West dancers without a headgear. that they have a very simple dance move. And they do not have many facial expressions. The only expressions seen are their eyes moving in the direction of their hands. And now we see a very beautiful representation of butterflies, I would say.
As we have reached almost towards the end of the Natha Devale procession, we are now about to see the most awaited moment in this procession itself. And now we see the chief incumbent of the Natha Devale marching in the procession. And following him, we see the three great tuskers.
Indeed, we can see the chief incumbent paving the way for this mighty tusker.
The ceremonial tusker today, as usual, is Muthuraja, belonging to Venerable Kokkavita Vipulasara Thero of the Kandy Vihare in Alutgama. Muthuraja is never alone without his colleague Kumari, also belonging to Venerable Vipulasara Thero, who is accompanying him, alongside with Rani, belonging to Mr. Nalaka Jayasingha of Kodagama.
And that's the end of the Natha Devale procession.
We are now seeing pictures of the Vishnu Devale premises.
The second Devale Perahera of the Dalada procession is the Vishnu Devale procession. This procession represents God Vishnu, who is thought to be the god overseeing the well-being of this island nation.
Indeed, and now we can see the chief incumbent of the Vishnu Devale respectfully bringing the godly ornaments of Lord Vishnu to be placed on the mount of the tusker or the elephant. Leading the Vishnu Devale Perahera, we see a group of cloth flag bearers. And this speaks of the various areas and districts of ancient Sri Lanka.
One can see that those who take part in this Perahera, including the elephants, are mostly clad in blue, since this is the color associated with God Vishnu.
The first elephant with the official carrying the flag of the Sapara Koralaya is Suranimala, belonging to the Alutnuara Dadimunda Devalaya. Suranimala is considered as one of the key participants of the Sri Vishnu Devale Perahera after his arrival to our domestic elephant culture in the year 2017.
And this is the first heavy troupe of the Vishnu Devale Perahera. If you paid close attention to the Perahera, you would have noticed a difference in the tunes and the tempo of the drums of the respective heavy troops of the Maligawa Perahera, Natha Devale Perahera, and now the Vishnu Devale Perahera. This is because these heavy troops are responsible for their respective of the respective Devavas of the Devadas. And therefore, these heavy troops would have a different tune, which reflects their homage, the veneration and homage paid for their respective gods.
Following the heavy exhibitors, we now see the second elephant in the Devale.
The Devale would be consisting of the most amount of permanent elephants who definitely take part in every year. One such example is Kandula, who we now witness, belonging to Venerable Murundeniye Dhammaratana Thero, the chief incumbent of the Mutyangana Rajamaha Vihara in Badulla.
And now we see another Nayandhi troupe in this Devale Perahera.
In fact, Rajiv, the headgear of these Nayandhi dancers is significantly different because in the previous Nayandhi dancing troupes we saw a white headgear, whereas now we see both red and yellow headgears.
Indeed, and this reflects the difference and the uniqueness of these dancing troupes.
March of the formidable Damunupola elephant. His name is Bandara and he belongs to Mr. Sisira Samarakot of Polgahavela. Banda is marching in the traditional upcountry style of war elephants.
Clad in blue robes, we now have another set of Savaran dancers in the Devale procession.
It should be specially mentioned that these Savarang dancers are school children representing their respective schools. And as you can see, the simplicity of the steps of this dance allows even the very young children to experience the honor of being a part of such a majestic and respectful procession.
Indeed, it is really pleasing to see these vibrant moves of the young dancers who are clad in gleaming blue, representing the color of God Vishnu.
As you can see, these young dancers make use of the complete space, of the large space of the streets with their graceful movements using the savarang.
The two sister elephants representing the northwestern province, None and Kumari, belonging to Mr. Sarath Jayalath of Maspotha in Kurunegala.
And here too, these elephants bear protectors on their mouths. And this is the second troupe of Nayandhi Dancers that we see in the Vishnu Devale procession itself.
And it can be seen that this Nayandhi dancing troupe involves very young dancers. And this is very important for the handing over of these traditions and skills from generation to generation. Dancing in two groups, we see these Nayandhi dancers welcome the godly ornaments of the Vishnu Devalaya.
Procession, the chief incumbent of Vishnu Devale.
Just as other days, the ceremonial tusker, clad in royal blue, once again is the single-tusked, yet the most majestic Rama, belonging to Mr. Kuda Gunasekara of Heyalthuduwa, and accompanied by his bearer, Mr. Mahesh Vijayasekara of Attanagalla. As usual, Rama is accompanied today by his sister colleagues Vasana and Mali. Vasana belonging to Mrs. Krishanti Alapatha of the prominent Alapatha Valauva in Ratnapura, while Mali belongs to Mr. Chatura Vikramanayaka of the prominent Millav family, Horana. And Mali is the bearer of Mali, is the bearer of the sridaladamaligawa elephant stables, Mr. Pradeep Miyanapala.
And we see how Rama is proudly carrying the godly ornaments of God Vishnu, who is assumed to be aspiring to become a Buddha in time to come. And he's also a protector of this island, Sri Lanka.
Indeed, it's beautiful to see the portraying of such gentleness, regardless of its size, to show respect to God Vishnu. We see this trio of elephants and tuskers walk the streets of the Kandian kingdom, marking the end of the Vishnu Devale Perahera.
As they leave our sight, up next we are about to see the beginning of the Kataragama Devale Perahera.
Indeed. And now we are seeing pictures of the chieftain of the Kataragama Maha Devalaya bring with great respect the godly ornaments of God Kataragama. moment where the godly ornaments of God Katragama is being placed on this beautiful elephant draped in red.
As usual, we have a group of Buddhist flag bearers to denote the commencement of the Kataragama Devale Perahera as well.
And here again we see cloth flags following the Buddhist flags representing the various districts and areas of the Kandian kingdom.
The color worn by most of the participants in this segment, in this part of the Perahera, is red because this is the color associated with God Kataragama, and also the sign of the god, the peacock, or the vehicle of the god, the peacock, is also seen throughout the Perahera.
Led by 3 young castanet players, we see the first heavy troupe of the Kataragama Devalaya. And as mentioned before, we notice a significant increase in the tempo of the drums and a significant increase of the tone of the horana played in this heavy troupe of the Kataragama Devalaya.
This heavy troupe, which comprises both young and elderly players, conveys us the message of the impending approach of the procession.
Unlike the other Devale Peraheras, the first elephant of the Sri Maha Kataragama Devale Perahera in this 4th Kumbal day will be parading with the Gajanayaka Nilame, who is Rajita Vijayatunga, and this elephant is Manike, belonging to Mr. Anura Kempitiya of Kupane in Kegol.
Indeed, this Gajanayaka Nilame can be seen paving the way for a young troupe of castanet players. Again, due to the simplicity of this dance, it is a great opportunity for young players like this to take part in a pageantry which is respected internationally.
And unlike in the other segments of the procession we have seen so far, we can see these dancers wearing very bright colors.
Indeed, the bright colors also reflects the very strong and powerful nature of God Kataragama.
Following behind is one of the most special characters in this year's Kataragama Devale procession. It's Kumari, belonging to Mr. Asanka Vijay Singha of Balangoda.
With their vibrant movements, here we see a group of wooden stick dancers.
And I believe this is the first wooden stick dancing troupe that we see in this Devale Perahera, rather the 5-fold Esala Maha Perahera. As you can see, these Likeli dancers not only pleases our eyes with beautiful moves, but they also produce a very unique sound which adds to the beauty of the drums and the horana soaring up the skies of the Kandian kingdom.
This young elephant, a definite participant of the Sri Maha Devale Perahera, is Vishwa, who was gifted to the Mahanayaka Thero of the Sri Lanka Ramani Nikaya Venerable Napane Premasiri Thero in the year 2011 by former President Mahinda Rajapaksha. And today, Vishwa belongs to the chief incumbent of the Shasana Vardhana Pirivena in Maligawa.
And now we have a group of Udaki players in the Kataragama Devale procession.
Indeed, speaking of this very unique instrument, it is a hand drum and it holds a special place in the Dalada celebrations. It is used as a tool that provides a steady beat or note to the Dalada procession.
This gentle young female elephant, who became a grandmother at the age of 32, is Sama, belonging to the chief incumbent of the Alan Mathiniyarama temple in Kirulapana, Venerable Uduwe Dhammaloka Thero.
And we see yet another Nayandhi troupe in this Esala Maha Perahera, paving the way for one of the most important and respectful events in this Kataragama Devale Perahera. And as we can see, portraying the color of God Natha, we see these Nayandhi dancers dressed and ornamented with red headgear. Hear the sounds of the ornaments of these Nayandhi dancers add more beauty to the beats of the drum, the beats of the Gataberea, and the sound of the Horanayava.
These Nayandhi dancers now welcome and pave the way for the chief incumbent of the Kataragama Devale, as well as the elephant and basically the elephant trio of the Kataragama Devale.
The ceremonial elephant today, just like yesterday, is Vijita Raja, the only elephant representing domestic elephants in the north central province of Sri Lanka, belonging to the historic Dimbulagala Rajamaha Vihara in Polonnaruwa to Venerable Millane Srilankara Thero. Vijita Raja is accompanied by Aruna, belonging to the Handala Rajamaha Vihara in Vattala to Venerable Higgoda Saddananda Thero, accompanied by Esala, belonging to the Mahanayaka Thero of the Sri Lanka Ramani Nikaya, Venerable Napane Premasiri Thero, and residing at the Senanayaka Pirivena in Pirisyala.
All these elephants are wearing gleaming red, as well as they bear the symbol or the vehicle of God Kataragama on their foreheads.
Indeed, and I believe this marks the end of the Kataragama Devale Perahera.
And now begins the last of the four Devale Perahera, Deities and the fivefold Perahera itself, the Pattini Devala procession.
Goddess Pattini is a deity who commands great respect among most of the citizens of this country.
The only female representation of the Dalada procession is the Pattini Devala Perahera. Therefore, in this segment of the procession alone, we can see many unique features.
Indeed, and leading the Pattini Devala Perahera, we see the Buddhist flag bearers, and now paving the way to an elephant clad in red.
Leading the procession of goddess Pattini, here we have Bibila, quite a special elephant this year since it was his first time he carried the godly ornaments of goddess Pattini in yesterday's third Kumbal Procession belonging to Mr. Udaragala Patti of Giriyulla.
And this is the heavy troupe of the Pattini Devala procession.
Folklore stated that goddess Pattini was a great model who preserved her chastity, and due to this great and noble qualities, she could obtain the highest veneration of human beings.
And these heavy beaters convey us the message of the approach or the arrival of the Pattini Devala procession, which is dedicated to goddess Pattini.
And it should be specially mentioned that this group of heavy drum beaters is responsible of the Thevava of the Pattini Devalaya. And as you would have noticed, the tunes and the beats of these heavy troupe beaters is very unique to their respective Devalaya, which is the Pattini Devalaya.
As mentioned by Sachini, this is the only episode in the Perahera which gives prominence to the female sector. And Sita, who is right in front of us, belonging to Mr. Roshan Patiran of Maharagama, was one such lucky female who was fortunate to carry the godly ornaments in the 2014 kandyesalaperahera.
And now we see yet another significant dancing performance by a group of female dancers.
And this is the Pantheru dance of the Pattini Devala Perahera. We see a young child beating the Gataberea, not seconding to the elders around him.
And it is to be noted that it is for the very first time in the entire procession that we see these female dancers performing, and that's the speciality or the uniqueness of the Pattini Devala procession.
Indeed, these female dancers magnify the beauty of this procession, adorned in vibrant colored attire and head accessories.
And now we see the second elephant in the Pattini Devala procession, swaying to the rhythm and the beat of these young female West dancers.
And that youthful elephant who is following these Pantheru dancers is the junior elephant of the historic Mahiyangana Rajamahawihara belonging to Venerable Urulayawatte Dhammarakkhita Thero, and his name is Isuru. Isuru was gifted to the Mahiyangana Rajamahawihara in the year 2003.
As Isuru carries a protector on his mount, up next in the Pattini Devala procession we see another group of dancers. In fact, this group comprises both males and females. This dance is a paddy dance or a goyam dance, which again symbolizes and signifies the agrarian lifestyle of the Sri Lankans.
Indeed, this harvest dance invokes the crucial part that is played by our great agricultural traditions that gave us the heritage idea that our nation is a land of fertility and the land of bounty.
The color of the goddess Pattini, or the color attributed to goddess Pattini, is yellow. Therefore, in this procession too, we can see the dancers and the elephants wearing the gleaming yellow as their robes.
And as you can see, these various instruments which is inculcated in this dance shows the unique culture that grew in our country centered on the rice plant.
Following is Bandara, representing the region of Horana, belonging to Mr. Kitsiri Katapitiya.
Up next, we see another dance form in the Kandian tradition, which is specially performed by female dancers, and it is a very eye-catching sight in the procession.
Indeed, these dancers take on the streets with such beauty and grace, paying no heed to their gentle souls. They are indeed very proud to be part of the honor by performing for the procession, being the only female representation of this fourth Kumbal Perahera.
Now following these traditional female dancers is another female dancing elephant who is quite popular for her moves. Manike, belonging to Mrs. Shriyani Gunawardana of Dangovita, who we fondly call as the Dangovita Athena.
As this young she-tusker passes, we now see the Nayandhi Dancers and Troupe in the Pattini Devale procession.
Indeed, and these Nayandhi dancers can be seen wearing a white jatava, or rather the headgear. And speaking of the outfit of these Nayandhi dancers, they have a very unique outfit which consists of a large loincloth which is wrapped to form a kind of loose trousers. And now they pave the way for the most important segment of this Pattini Devale Perahera.
As the incumbent of the Pattini Devale procession takes the streets, we now see the most prestigious occasion in this segment.
The last trio of elephants in the fourth Kumbal Perahera, the ceremonial elephant of the Sri Maha Pattini Devale, just like every other day, Mangala, belonging to Mr. Udaragalappatti of Giriyulla, accompanied by Rani, belonging to Mr. Richard Gonakumbura of Balangoda, alongside with Manike, belonging to Mr. H.R.S. Nishanka, will conclude the Perahera for this evening.
What you just saw was the conclusion of the fourth Maha Kumbal Perahera.
Let there be timely rains that will bring life-giving water to our fields and ensure a bountiful harvest.
May our country prosper. Dalada Samidu Pihitai.
සිංකණ්ඩ ශෛලපුර විරාජමාන වූ මුතුන් මල්කට බඳු දළදා සමිඳු වැඳ අවසර ගන්නේ උතුම් පෙරහැර කරුණ වහන්සේ ගජ තේජසින් යුතුව වැඩම වීමට පින් ලැබෙති වන්දා සාදු මමලං ජිනදන්ත ධාතුන්